My guests this morning, taking us through the newspapers, are the three of the candidates going up for the Dublin South by-election. They are George Lee, who of course is the RTÉ former economics editor, now Fine Gael candidate for the constituency, Alex White, who's Labour's candidate for the constituency, and also here Shay Brennan, the Fianna Fáil candidate. Shay Brennan, as a representative of the government, that looks extremely... it looks like it might be very difficult for Brian Conn right now, that the Greens look set to pull the plug on the government.
I think that's a bit strong. What they talked about was potentially a review of the programme. Like any plans, it's very important to keep an eye on these things on an ongoing basis. And, it's midterm. The government is a midterm government. It's unpopular because it's taking the necessary action. But
this is the coalition partner, as your party in the government is facing these most crucial elections. Polls today, yet reinforced again by a Sunday Business Post poll, showing support for Fianna Fáil very low. It actually is up 1 point, but it's only at 24%. Fine Gael at 34%. And the Green Party, your coalition members, the leader is coming out and saying he wants to review the programme for government.
As I understand from what the Taoiseach is saying, it's not going to be a full review of the programme for government.
No, the Taoiseach is saying very adamantly in that piece he is not going to review anything with the Greens.
That's fine, but on an ongoing basis, it does make a lot of sense to continually look at plans, particularly in a government partnership. It makes sense to sit down, and we're in economic times that we haven't seen before. The government has been, both parties in the government have been incredibly active in getting us through this. So yeah, maybe they do take their eye off the ball in terms of the stuff around the edges, and maybe this is just, let's certainly get us through this, but let's also refocus and just be sure that we don't miss out on certain points in this plan.
That's how you view it. Nothing more serious than that. Nothing that suggests that the Greens are facing electoral wipeout on June 5th, and they're now positioning themselves in such a way that they can pull out of the government, go to the electorate if we have a general election within the next 6 months, and say, well, listen, at a critical time we said we needed a review of the programme for government.
And any government party can pull out of the coalition at any time they want, and obviously the government parties have worked incredibly well together over the last 2 years. Yes, we're facing into elections, and yes, there will be positioning around the place with respect to that. But perhaps it's an opportunity for the Greens just to say, look, let's refocus on some of the initial issues. We do understand there's an economic situation that requires full attention, but let's not forget the day-to-day stuff as well. OK, George Lee, Fine Gael candidate for the Dublin South by-election. What do you make of those statements?
I think they're extremely serious. I think it's very clear the game is up. I think when you look at the programme for government, you have to remember how long it is. It's not that long, it's 2.5 years or thereabouts, or is it a little bit more since they signed it? It was signed by Bertie Ahern, who's no longer there, by Mary Harney, who's no longer leading a party, and by Trevor Sargent, who's no longer in charge of the Greens. It was signed at a time when what they promised people was that they'd cut the top rate of tax by 2%, the bottom rate down to 18%, that they'd expand all sorts of employment in the public sector, that they'd increase pensions, that they'd do all sorts of things. What we've had since then is a complete turnaround. They have not just increased the top tax rate, but they brought in levies on absolutely every piece of income that a person has.
But which they had to do, George, in fairness, because of what happened to the economy.
The question was about the programme for government. They promised in the programme for government that they'd have the PRSI rate, and what they've done is they've doubled the health levy. Everything that they have said in terms of that programme for government is so far beyond where we are now. It isn't a case of prioritising what's in it. It would be one thing if they did prioritise what's in it, but what they're doing is that they're bringing in things which were never in it, such as those tax increases. This programme for government is dead in the water. It's gone. And at the end of the day, I have no doubt that some people say, oh, it's a sinking ship, rats leave sinking ships. Now, the Greens are not rats. The Greens are a good party with good policies, important policies in terms of where they want to position the economy for the environmental challenge we face. They must, if they want to be true to that, and maintain the confidence of people and renegotiate a programme for government, because what's there doesn't make any sense. The reality, however, is that the last time they had a conversation about what they were going to do, they viewed the economy in a very fake manner about what it could deliver. The conversation that they have to have now is not between each other, Fianna Fáil and the Greens. Greens, the conversation they need to have is with the people. We need a general election, we need the air cleared, we need them to face up to their responsibilities, and we need to stop fooling around with regard to some programme for government which they're never going to agree, because the one thing for sure is that they can't deliver goodies. They have to face up to responsibility now, and for Brian Cowan to say there will be renegotiation, that does not make sense. This thing is finished. I tell you, people in my view would want to start getting ready for a general election sometime relatively soon.
I want to bring in Alex White as well. Shay, Brennan, yes, just very quickly.
I just want to make a quick point on that, George. The government is facing responsibilities. The government has recently gone through a budgetary process that has begun part of the 5-year plan to structurally repair our economy. And the fact that the government party
hasn't got a clue what they're doing.
Okay, Alex White.
The point surely is that in the context of the Dublin South by-election, in which the three of us are candidates, it's quite clear that the implications of all this means that whichever one of us wins it will have to defend the title fairly quickly. I mean, it's manifestly clear now that a general election is on the way. For the Taoiseach to say that the country needs stability, of course, is correct. But he's suggesting in that we have stability. We have anything but stability at the moment.
We have chaos.
We have economic chaos, and we have political chaos. Now,
but why would a general election necessarily be better for the country?
Because I agree with something that George said. It's for this reason that you cannot have a renegotiation. There is no renegotiation of this programme.
Because there is no programme.
If I could just make the point,
sorry, Alex,
George, it's not in fact going to happen, and there's an element of dishonesty, if I may say so, and I talk to obviously the Greens themselves directly on it, to be signalling this now prior to the 5th of June when people are going to the polls on the 5th of June, but not to actually involve the people in that debate.
Absolutely.
This is not a debate between two. No, please. This is not a debate that can be confined to those two parties. This is an unprecedented crisis for our country. And people say it's no time for an election. I'm sorry, it is time for an election.
But would it necessarily be the best thing for the country to have a general election during a time when surely we need stability right now?
There's always the case that says we don't. It's wrong to have an election, that it's expensive, that it's disruptive, and so on. But look, this is a democracy, and the fact is that this government's mandate is spent. It's a spent mandate. If they drag it out for another few months, as I say, if there's going to be some sort of discussions after there's no clarity from Dan Boyle or John Gormley as to what they mean, and that's why I say it's dishonest. Don't be signalling to the people that we might get something better after the election if you stick with us and vote with us on the 5th of June.
That is fundamentally dishonest.
George Lee, yes, yeah.
Karen, obviously, there's no point in fooling people about where we're at now. It's not easy, and it isn't easy for the government. But the reality is that what the people all need is some kind of idea and leadership with regard to where we're going, leadership they can follow. You can't follow somebody who doesn't live up to their responsibility, and in my view the government has broken the economy, crashed it, and they're going along as if they can continue to drive whatever vehicle they thought the economy was, that they're all right, don't worry, I'm okay, I can still drive. They can't. They have a responsibility to face up to it, to tell the people it's broken, to tell the people they can't deliver the promises, to tell the people that the last time that they went to them with the general election with a mandate for various things, that it's over, they can't do it, and go and respectfully ask people for a new mandate for doing the right thing. And we can't have this kind of stuff going on with leaders who haven't negotiated with each other that programme for government all those few years ago, then saying we want to renegotiate it, says one, we can't possibly renegotiate it, says the other. The people are fed up with them. They have to go, and the reason why it's so important, if they must restore this idea of that they've lived up to their responsibility, because if they don't, they cannot lead. We need leadership, and they're incapable right now of delivering that, and I think that's so important for the people.
George, the most irresponsible thing you could do here at this point is actually
you won't be able to lead.
The most irresponsible thing you could do is to bring down a government midway through a multi-year strategy to repair the economy, when international commentators and members of the European Commission have said the government is doing the right thing economically on this.
And
now look, it's no accident that I'm sitting between you two here in the studio, because your policies point in different directions.
Okay, Shay, that's all right. But Karen, the one thing Shay said,
if I could just answer that. No, the Fianna Fáil party described the Green Party.
Very important thing on
don't talk all over one another.
I've had this problem with George before. Just give somebody else a chance.
I will, Alex, bring you in
one very important thing about what Shay said. He said the most irresponsible thing you could do right now is to bring down this government. If it's brought down, it will be the Green Party who brings it down. It's not going to be Fine Gael, and it's not going to be Labour. It's going to be the Green Party, and in my view, it would be the responsible thing to do.